Two T's, please, Ray.
Hannah, I didn't get where I am today without knowing an expression that indicates a yearning to create a new identity and get away from it all when I see one. What's up?
This episode's viewing has helped me reach an important decision. I'm going to disappear into the 1970s. Permanently.
Oh.
I'll fake my own death, pick a new name, and build a new life for myself. Next week I plan to head out, leave my clothes on the bridge over the river, and...
Not on a beach? That'd be a bit more traditional, isn't it?
Well, we live in the West Midlands, Pete. The nearest beach is 100 miles away. Anyway, I thought I might open a novelty collectible shop. Maybe find some collies with catchphrases.
You know, I think you'd fit right in with that. I'll miss you, but a bit of a coincidence, actually, because I've also felt inspired to start a new life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to run away from here. I'm planning for a new job. I feel I need the change. Somewhere with mildly despairing corridors, slightly peculiar staff, everyone behaves as if they're living in their own quiet nightmare. It could all leave you none the wiser. But a modern Midlands university where information is stored on floppy disks.
That's fantastic, Pete. It sounds right up your street.
Mm-hmm.
Just one tiny thing.
What?
Don't you currently work for university here in the Midlands?
Tricky fellows, Midlands universities. Unpredictable geography. Financial troubles. Bit of a blitz going on, you could say.
To be honest, mate, I'm not that sure I do want to run away from my entire life here.
Same for me. I rather like you and Ray, and our friends who come to visit in Ray's cafe.
So do I. The 1970s is a nice place to visit, but I probably am better living full-time in the present.
Great.
Super.
Welcome to Cathode Rays. Each episode we pick a theme and use it to discuss 3 episodes of British television. The only rule is we must have been able to watch the programme on a CRT television set.
This episode's theme is running away from life. I'm going to chat about 3 series looking at people who've had enough. The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin.
A very peculiar practice.
Not sure we love you.
And Goodnight Sweetheart.
Tears and parting may make us forlorn, but with the dawn, a new day is born.
So, Pete, have you ever had the kind of day at work where you think, I'd like to run away from all this and start a new life somewhere?
As I gaze out the window, looking at the sewage works on and the abattoir on the other side of the road. Yeah, once in a while. Who hasn't? Especially when you're an elderly grandfather in his early 40s.
The grand old age of 46, Perrin is with me. How old are you, Pete?
I'm a tad even older than that.
So, I guess I should tell the people who haven't seen Reggie Perry what it's about, because you hadn't seen it. I was amazed, yeah.
That's right, yeah, no, I've never seen it properly, but I've seen clips of it since the dot. It's one of the things that always comes up, is always cited and talked about in very, reverential tones by people in the business as being a cleverer class of sitcom with something profound to, and even calling it a sitcom. I mean, it is a sitcom. It's got a studio audience, but it's an adaptation of a book, isn't it? He learned.
Well,
today.
yeah, 3 books altogether, so one for each series. So the original book came out in 1975, and then the first series comes in 1976. And so they follow Reggie going gradually mad. I think we just say burned out, like these days. And deciding eventually to, as the opening titles is to show you, leave all his clothes on the beach and go off and try to live a new life, because he's trying to escape from everything he feels, but he's not really quite specific about it. And the whole first series pretty much leads up to him deciding to do this, gradually sort of becoming more bizarre and odd. I think it's probably because it's a serial, and there is a sort of an ongoing sort of story and to it. I think it's all probably because I know it well now. I'm quite happy to just revisit individual episodes, and they do there is a certain amount of plot that make them self-contained. And one of the things I love is that we have Reggie's thoughts as a voiceover, because it works. It's a really nice way of adapting a book, because we're there in his head in the way you can be with the book. But it's also that part of us as well that although we are watching Reggie seemingly sort of losing it, and we're so on his side. I am anyway. Well, you could fully justify his reasons for all his things, pretty much.
We have three very interesting protagonists in these shows that we're comparing, because they're all slightly differently drawn, and you might sympathise with them to different extents. Because he's no Victor Meldrew, although Victor Meldrew is actually a sympathetic character, but he's definitely no Basil Fawlty. So the two episodes we watched were episode 2.
Yes, and episode 6. Which is
I guess 2 is where it really starts to sink. 1, 2, and so that's all I've seen so far. I watched a couple more as well, but it is clear you're watching a single story progress. It is not an episode of the week thing. He's literally a different person by the end of the show than he is at the series than he is at the beginning. How much development do you need? I thought from the clips that I'd seen that shot of him running off into the sea in the beginning and then you just know, but I thought that was him actually killing himself or something, because I hadn't quite paid enough attention to what happened. And that you do just glimpse him turning around and coming back again in the opening credits. But also that's the film of him imagining it. That's not how, because when he actually, spoilers, it's the thing he's really famous for. He obviously does fake his own death. It's not really a spoiler. That's the whole point of the story. It's slightly different, I thought, but I didn't think it was the exact same footage that was used. So it runs in strange. The thing with the mother-in-law, where every time he thinks of his mother-in-law, a picture of a hippo appears, and the audience.
Nice, long, quiet weekend, eh?
Well, don't forget we're going to see Mother on Sunday.
Yes, well, never mind.
Themselves. And I'm like, what are they actually seeing? Because that's not happening in the studio. Or is someone holding up a big picture of a hippo or something?
I suppose they must be, Mother-in-law jokes were popular in the period, I believe.
They were, and it's like, and I'm thinking, it's that dash of surrealism, unusual because sitcom has stabilised. Although you've got wild comedy shows like The Goons on the radio, where where each episode has a plot. It's not just gags. Each episode has a plot, but there's also loads of surrealism in there. By the mid-70s, I guess people have got pretty comfortable with what they expect a sitcom to be like, and they don't expect a sudden little Monty Python-ish burst in the middle of a sitcom, and that's why it gets such a big laugh.
It is quite like a normal, like a sort of sitcomish world. He's middle class in the suburbs. He's got a wife who sees him off to work every day. He comes home to his cats. He's got what is, I suppose, it's often, I think they try to portray it as quite a dull job in many ways.
Dull and pointless, and yet he has this woman sat there for him to lust over in a very creepy way. But it's all presented as sort of he admires her. He looks she's unobtainable, so he's not actually molesting her, I suppose.
It's very much to fantasize about it. There is an episode where he does decide to invite her over whilst his wife's away within the series, but various things seem to get in the way of it, and I think we kind of get hints. Probably more like in that episode 6 that he's trying on all these different identities, and when he gets propositioned, he's pretending to be this lord, and he gets propositioned by another rather posh woman who basically says, "You want to come back to my place?" I love Elizabeth, his wife, and he thinks he wants something else, but that's not actually what he does want. He just wants to be happier in his old life.
Mr. Perrin,
Yes.
I've worked for you for 8 years. Do you mind if I say something?
That sounds rather ominous, Joe. What is it?
Well, I think you need a holiday.
God! Everybody seems to think I need a holiday. Oh, good evening. Here is the 9 o'clock news. Today, Russia invaded China. Richard Burton married Elizabeth Taylor for the 7th time, and in the Commons, the Prime Minister told the House that Reginald Perrin was in need of a holiday.
Yeah, and it kind of felt, and with the earlier episode 2, it felt, because it's all about him, he's our viewpoint, he's our narrator, literally, we're getting to, the people, and particularly the women, are sort of just that she's his wife. His wife is his wife. He comes home from work early. What's she doing? She's watering pot plants in the house. Apparently that's what she does when he's at work, because she's a sitcom wife. And to begin with, that's it. She very clearly, especially in the final episode, which I did jump ahead and watch, she gets her own interiority very much brought to the fore, and her own choices completely shape things, which is good. If you only watched episode 2, you wouldn't have realised that was where it was taking her. And yeah, but the other characters are all really well drawn, really instantly, although strange, especially CJ as boss. Who's a proper sitcom boss? Isn't he Terry's boss in Terry and June as well? He is, isn't he? I wasn't just imagining that.
I've not seen Terry and June.
No, you know what? He isn't. I'm remembering now. It's someone similar. I'll edit that out so I don't sound stupid.
I'll come straight to the point. I didn't get where I am today by waffling.
No, CJ, no.
Never use 2 words where one will do. That's my motto. That's my axiom. That's the way I look at things.
Yes, CJ. I wonder, CJ, while I was
Would
here...
it surprise you to learn, Reggie, that overall sales in April across the whole spectrum were down 0.1%?
No, not particularly, CJ.
I don't say to you, Reggie, pull your socks up. I say to you that overall sales in April across the whole spectrum were down 0.1%. I leave you to draw your own conclusions and pull your socks up.
Yes, CJ.
You kind of spend this first series getting introduced to all these characters, and they do stick with this sort of show throughout its run, and so you feel like you've kind of got to know them, and then when stuff gets sort of flipped and they're doing totally different things, in odd situations, that sort of comedy side of it works well. So I always just love the little random references in this of every time he comes into work, there's a different absurd reason why his train's been late. I've now discovered why my 10 years older than me brother says this every time I'm late. He says something like, "Oh, what was it today, Pete? You got the train stuck on the points." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I drove." And he's like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. You won't get it." I can now actually, yeah. And there's still where he was writing a letter and getting Jones' secretary to sort of take a letter, and the address is 75 Car Park Road, Birmingham, which says so much about how Birmingham was perceived at the time.
The reputation of our fair regional capital.
Yes. But there's some other nice period bits actually this time of the company has its own doctor who just apparently just sits around waiting for anyone to come see them. And,
reading saucy magazines.
Yeah. And offers and Reggie's kind of spinning the story about pretending this friend of mine has this problem of like basically Reggie's not being able to get it up for a long time at this point, and the doctor says, "Oh well, if it was you, I could give you a month's sick leave." I'm like, hold on, you could have a month's sick leave from work just because you've not managed to shag for 6 weeks. That's absurd.
Now, his wife's brother, played by Jeffrey Palmer, Jimmy, is that military archetype but twisted. We don't have people like that anymore. We need to bring them back. He's weird and strange, but sort of and totally at home. But his lusting over his niece, who admittedly is a buxom 30-year-old, but it's not. You told me it's more.
It's a bit more explicit in the book. Yeah. Uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's one of those weird things where you can see how was this acceptable? You're presuming that another bloke is reading this because there's no way you'd write this surely there's no way you'd write this if a woman was, or are you trying to be really clever and say something specific about Jimmy? But otherwise it never really kind of goes anywhere. Jimmy is this odd, I say it's an odd character. There's not a characters in this who aren't on. He's clearly a guy. He went to public school, he went in the army, and he just now can't actually run his life himself.
He turns up at their house because he's run out of food, and it just comes and they have to give him some food to take home.
Bit of a cock up on the catering front is his catchphrase. Yeah. And then later on, he's deciding to form his own sort of militia because the country's gone to pot, and clearly he's waiting for his moment. But that's a wonderful scene, and one of my favourites that pops up on sort of clips quite a bit of Reggie go, what sort of people do you think you're going to attract to this?
Awkward Johnny's holidays. German barber at a camp I was at once, BAOR 23, didn't have a holiday for 3 years, went bonkers, became convinced he was a deck chair. I said to him, morning, Hans, short back and sides, please, and he said, no can do, but you can sit on me if you like.
There's also the time period thing of their when they're in the safari park and they've got the 2 children in the back, and Reggie's son-in-law and his daughter are these awful hippie modern parents.
I love that one of the indicators that they're hippie and modern is that they've called their children Adam and Jocasta.
Yeah.
Jocasta I can get, but it's weird to think of Adam being a name that was ever
modern name, but it's literally the oldest name. But Elizabeth says they're commenting about how the children speak, and she's trying to correct their grammar, and she says,
well, they should be helped to speak correctly. They might want jobs with the BBC one day.
And still, so these 2 great sitcom things. If we cover more sitcoms, we need to keep a tally of these things. This hits 2 of the sitcom greats, which is Visit to a Safari Park. That's gone out. Why don't you get that anymore? Everyone knows that the safari park is driving slowly around a safari park and breaking down halfway around is a hilarious situation that all comedies should do. And the other is Office Tea Lady coming around with a trolley.
I would love an office tea and coffee lady who brings around macaroons, even if you can't reserve one.
And you can buy out her entire trolley for $5 and tell her to keep the change, and she'll be delighted. All that I learned about the French Revolution, I learned from sitcom jokes about puns about letting people eat cake, which is all that I learned about the French Revolution. So I've never done an exam about that.
We're kind of left with Reggie by the end of this first series. He goes off and decides to rename himself finally Martin Wellenborn. He's just got a very blunt statement going off, I am free. He's not. It's all anything but.
He's got 2 more series to go, so
it's all these picturesque towns and as well. It's for me, it's odd. He's left a suburban place and then a very nice suburban area, but really clearly wants to head off and be in the countryside. But then finds actually he's looking around all these places and it's just like, another antique shop, and as someone who lives in a small town next in a very semi-rural area, I'm always amazed by people who say, let's go to the countryside, and then get surprised and go, but there's not really very much here. And I'm like, yes, it's a nightmare. I've got some friends who did the whole kind of, yes, we're going to sort of move out and away from this. And like, you spend your whole life living in cities. And then after a few years, like, it's quite far to travel to work, it turns out. And I think we might move back. So I like Reggie trying to ingratiate himself into the various pubs. And that's the Major's seat.
Yeah, he goes off and does it in rapid fire. You get the great British sitcom trope of someone trying to pretend they're a different class than they really are, and he gets to do it multiple times in multiple directions. To
get back in your lower middle class spot, like Reginald Perrin.
Oh yeah, he's definitely not upper middle class. He's definitely lower middle class.
But so kind of conclusion around this is him heading back to his sort of old life, which he can't because he's faked his death. So he's trying to head back as Martin Welborn. Essentially, he misses his wife, but I don't think he misses the children that much. He's 46, so obviously they're all grown up and they've left home.
Yeah, he's paid off the mortgage. Children are all grown up. Yeah. Once you hit your mid-40s, you're pretty much done.
Yeah. I don't know what it's for, but I watched this sort of quite a few times, and I've read the books. And then the first time I saw it, I'd probably been about 12, 13, and I quite identified with Reggie. There is a theme of a lot of my favourite shows around sort of the teenage years are sort of people basically running away from life. I was quite keen on this theme, and then when I read the books, as an adult, I was sort of in a job that wasn't really going anywhere, and really sort of wasn't quite happy at all in life, and just sort of trying to put it away a bit. And again, really identified with Reggie. It was really nice to eventually come back and watch it and be in a happy place and be that bit more separate from him. And it feels that way it's been rewarding in multiple ways. But I think there is an attraction in that for like a lot of people for these kind of things of, I think people often, the grass is greener on the other side, which I said probably sums up some and Reggie's bit. Probably sort of stress and burnout as well, working with CJ. But it feels something that's probably slightly sort of eternally attractive, to be honest. And you being able to do it in a sitcom context, you can obviously push things quite a lot more.
Yeah, that's what it's perfect for, isn't it? Yeah, you can take things to extremes that you wouldn't do if you were just writing a drama about those issues. Yeah. Yeah.
I think what we got here is a whole new dimension of catastrophe theory.
Jen, please go away. I don't want any more catastrophes.
Catastrophe theory doesn't have to be bad. It's just what happens when you push steadily along in one direction. Everything's nice and logical. Then suddenly the whole thing flips inside out.
Well, speaking of taking things to extremes, should we jump over to my my offering? Which... Oh, did you have more? Sorry, you got more?
No. I'm just bracing myself for the nuns, for all of it.
So picture it. It's a probably gloomy spring evening, and BBC Two, back in the days when it used to actually make television programmes and dramas and comedies and things, puts out this new series starring fresh-faced Peter Davison. It was written very specifically as a 7-episode story with a beginning and a middle and an end. So like Reginald Perrin, although there wasn't a book first, it's not a this week's episode situation. This is a 7th of the story each week. And our young hero, Dr. Dacre, recently divorced from Wolverhampton. I mean, he's from Wolverhampton and recently divorced. Arriving at his new job in the first episode, which isn't the one we're focusing on, but he goes to Lowlands University, which in fact is filmed a mishmash of the University of Birmingham and Keele University, which was done because the BBC had previously filmed a controversial drama at one specific university, and that university did not like it at all. The History Man, it was called. They did not like at all having this drama about how awful it is going to university, ending up being associated with them. So they create a fictional university by merging two real campuses, which leads to some very amusing tracking shots as he sometimes drives past the building in Birmingham and then drives past another one in Staffordshire. Well, quite amusing to me. Yeah. So it's written by Andrew Davies, who goes on to write a million different costume dramas and other things, everything from Tipping the Velvet to every body-stripping adaptation of a classic of literature, and the Bridget Joneses as well, and things like that. And directed by, and unusually for a comedy, every single episode, all of both series and the sequel TV movie, are all directed by the same director as well, David Tucker, who had previously done a lot of Tenko, but was very, very new to the scene at the time. So Peter Davison plays Dr. Dacre, a fresh-faced, I don't know why they thought Peter Davison, fresh-faced, terribly nice, rather anxious young man who...
He's not that fresh-faced anymore by this point, is he?
By this
he's a bit chiselled in by this point, yeah.
And,
perfectly matches Dr. Dacre.
He's moving out to this new university from his previous practice in Wolverhampton, where he's from. And but the characters, and he's basically Mr. Nice, Mr. Normal. The characters he meets there are larger than life, and it is he works at the University Health Service with 3 other doctors. The amazing pairing of David Troughton's Bob Buzzard, who is the most it was the thing that anchors it in the 80s. This could not have been made before the mid-80s because he's such a perfect Thatcherite spoof of a kind of neurotic, money-obsessed, status-obsessed, kind of, and complete failure. He wants to be. He dreams of being a hugely successful businessman or something, and he's stuck at this place and he hates it. And his sort of counterpart, opposite in every way, is Rosemarie, played by the absolutely hypnotic Barbara Flynn. And she's a sitcom character, she's a caricature, and yet she's got so many dimensions to her. For me, watching this as a teenager, I was absolutely transfixed. Bit of a Jacqueline Pierce thing going on, probably. Different types of guys like her for two different reasons. Probably some guys like her for both those reasons at the same time, and they're really getting their money's worth because she's sexy as hell, and she's cruel and clever and cunning. And they could have done a sitcom with a stereotypical, she's a feminist doctor, she's going to crack the whip. And she is a feminist doctor and she does crack the whip, but she's absolutely as hypocritical as Bob Buzzard is, and she's just cleverer than him, and she runs rings around them. But still, it doesn't always go her way. That's good. Yeah, hilarious results. Presiding over them all is Old Jock, played by Graham Crowden, giving one of his more subdued performances, but a subdued performance by his standards is a bloody big performance.
Red marks? No, Freud and Melanie Klein every time for me. Now, let's get some light on this. Oh, I see. Red marks. Pretty man. You have acute blood poisoning. You're going to die.
And he's usually drunk, and he knows that he's yesterday's man. He's written a book about sexual frustration and the common cold. Was what his main contribution to academia. And he reigns over this health practice. And the story is basically about those four characters and how they interact with each other. But the limelight is completely hogged by iconic, in the truest sense of the word, these two nuns who were only featured initially. They're not in the script. They only feature in the opening montage of the very first episode. He drives past some nuns foraging through bins. And the director loved it so much that becomes a motif that just keeps happening. They're stealing milk, they're burgling people's rooms. Every episode features at least one cutaway to the nuns. And I think it's like presaging like the log lady in Twin Peaks. This is 1986, but this comedy feels ready for the 90s. It's doing stuff that a lot of 80s comedy wasn't doing yet, which is another reason for loving it. And the episode that I propose we watched is the final episode, because we're talking about getting away from it all, but this is the episode where it gets flipped around and we meet these three auditors are sent in to investigate the university because it's been announced there's going to be 25% cuts, and we have a central cast of four, and the four of them quickly realize that one of them is probably going to be for the chop, and it becomes about them trying to wheedle their way out of that. And Mr. Prettyman, the youngest of the three auditors, is very much a clone of Peter Davison's character as he was in episode 1, but maybe a bit more clued up. What did you think of it?
So I'd seen, I think, the first episode before, and then we went and had an audience with Peter Davison, along with quite a few other people were there, and they did a whole clip montage of very peculiar practice, and I sat next to you and go, I have got to watch this show. So, like, what the hell is going on here? So I've done a bit of a random bit. I've done episodes 1, 2, 5 and 7 now. So I felt I got my intro, and felt like I was going to get to know these characters, and yeah, I do want to try and go back and fill in the gaps now, and yeah, I was trying to get the measure of them a bit. I really liked Jock, and yeah, just a bit pissed of old Doctor basically. But yeah, well, watching the later ones, it is Rose that's caught me on more, and the final episode where she has a scene with young Kathy Bates.
Kathy Burke, not Kathy Bates.
You
get loads of
students.
Basically, celebrity cameos making their first appearances. Kathy Bates in one
Grant
scene.
in episode 2, which is just incredibly odd. And Rose basically sort of turns around and going, well, like, they're clearly sexually assaulting you. And we're all like, what? What? I think you should be going on this women's assertiveness training. And by the end, she's managed to persuade this young age student that actually, yeah, she's great, she's wonderful. But it's all the other people that's wrong. Yeah. But actually just going out the door.
All right, terrific. Thanks a lot. We're going to take care of you, Alice. Oh, and by the way, I think it might be a good idea to go to some German lectures and read some books, just in case. Yeah, right. Brilliant.
Yeah, and it stops her from being a two-dimensional character that you would always cheer for. You know, she's a bastard sometimes, and you know, she's telling someone to go and accuse an innocent man of harassing her purely because it's going to help Rosemary in her personal career aims if something like that kicked off. And she takes her seduction to the extreme with Mr. Prettyman in that episode, having introduces herself as bisexual, but also has absolutely no interest in actually having sex with anyone through most of the first series because she's got much more important things to be doing. Basically, is the gist of it. But
there is actually. From what I've seen, it feels like there's a lot of sex going on. Because there was also an episode about a epidemic of sexual transmitted diseases outbreak.
Yes, they make one up, don't they?
Breaking out on campus, which is just wonderful, actually, of them having to try and trace this, and then feeling, we've got a really low rate of it, and then that turns out to be the massive prompt for loads of students to come forward with any little bits and pieces. I was slightly amused, actually, the young student, who's actually like a journalist as well, who goes to see Stephen and interview him, refers to VD, and then he refers to STDs. Whereas for me, the VD is like the really old-fashioned term. It's what they warned American soldiers about and when they went overseas in the war. And whereas STD is the modern term that I grew up with. Although I believe it's been taken over by infections. We don't like the word diseases anymore, apparently.
Oh, no, yeah, it's got negative connotations. An infection is lovely. Yeah. They talk, a couple of the episodes on the DVD have got commentary tracks, and they talk about that a bit, also because it's this episode, they talk about how straight people at this point, the AIDS awareness was just coming through while they were making this, and so when they do the STD/I episode, they're having to introduce students to the idea of condoms being a thing that they might need to use, and everyone's like, but it's still in that post-60s zone of as long as you're on the pill.
It was a really odd thing to me, because I was like, hold on, none of these students are using protection, because by the time I was a student in the 21st century and we had sexual health stuff at school. But yeah, it was very much, there are two reasons to use protection, and one of them is sexually transmitted diseases. And then when you went to university, God, they were giving them away around the freshers and fair, yeah.
And I think by the time they get to series 2 in '88, because this was just made as a standalone thing, but then it gets nominated. It gets nominated for a BAFTA for best drama, not comedy, which is interesting. And I should have said at the start that it's not filmed before a studio audience. It's filmed like a drama. There's location shoot and then studio work. In '86, it's nominated for Best Drama Series, but it's beaten by Life and Loves of a She-Devil. So they hurriedly commission a new series, but the second series is it's set at the same place, but it's very much a sequel, and it's been a while, you know. But what's missing from the second series is the fantastic character of Lynn, Peter Davison's character's girlfriend, who is this extremely confident, sporty, intelligent woman who's everything he's not, and she sort of rescues him in the first episode from his sort of anxieties and trying to cure his touch phobia. The thing of him being a doctor who has a phobia about touching people.
She loves you, that big girl. I know about all this stuff.
Chen, she's younger than I am. She's cleverer than I am. She's stronger than me. She can run faster than me. She's randier than me. You know, when I dream about her, she's always ahead of me. Getting further and further away.
When Lynn wasn't in the second series, I was really disappointed. She's replaced by a character called Greta, who's from Poland and is quite abrasive and is kind of the opposite of Lynn, which is a good dramatic thing for Peter Davison's character to cope with. But yeah, I did really miss that she wasn't in it anymore.
Here we are, the two big successes.
I don't want to be a big success, Lynn. I thought I did, but I don't. I just want to do my job and be happy.
Yeah, I'd definitely put it down more as like a comedy drama. But I suppose this is roughly the same period where you're getting those kind of... We want to do drama slightly differently. It's probably sort of the same rough period of Our Feeder's Own Pet. But I guess the terminology to comedy drama may not entirely sort of come about then.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether we had that quite as pinned down as a concept back then, which made it seem a bit odder, yeah.
Well, Dr. Tittle, it's quite straightforward as I see it. You've got the screaming adepts, and I don't blame you.
What should I do, Dr. Buzzard? Kate says I've got to go back into school teaching.
Well, my wife Daphne gets these notions too. Just tell her to belt up and keep taking the tablet.
No, you don't.
So, and then this final episode of the first series, we get to see a lot of Dr. Dacre's flatmate, Chen, whose catastrophe theory that he's worked out is the theme of the whole episode, and the idea that things will just happen, and everything will just get out of control anyway, so what's the point trying to control it? And it's, as a series, you can forget, it's a mid-80s sitcom. We've got a bisexual woman, we've got ethnic minority characters whose ethnicity is treated as an interesting facet that they have, and occasionally they'll say something pertinent to it, but then often they won't. It's not. Chen's a very 90s character compared to what we would be used to seeing, if seeing at all, in sitcoms previously. And often you'll watch these things and think, oh yeah, you wouldn't do that like that now, even though you might think, well, they're doing their best, they're taking baby steps, whatever. But actually, with a character like his, it's like, no, you would do that now, probably. And there's episodes there's a gay guy in the next series, and there's also they do more. There's a safe sex episode in series 2 as well, or at least an episode that addresses it a bit more because they felt bad about having failed to really address it properly in the VD episode. It's still just treated as a nuisance. It's like, oh dear, some of our students are getting sexually transmitted diseases. What a pain! How embarrassing. Which you stop doing that after 1985.
I felt immediately jumps to mind is the James Bond films, where in 1985, Roger Moore is still rogering his way around, frankly. But by 1987, Timothy Dalton is much less putting it about, and it was very intentional for him to have a single lady. So there we go. That 1986 we can count as the turning point.
That's it, yeah. And this is definitely a Dalton-ready era, a comedy that belongs in the Dalton era of our culture rather than the Roger Moore era of our culture. Yeah.
Dr. McCannon?
No need to tell me, pretty man. I know your errand and your fell purpose. The old king must be sacrificed so that the lowland may bloom again.
No, really, it wasn't that.
Come closer, pretty man. I want to see my executioner clearly.
I don't feel all that.
Good God, he disappeared.
If you really do want to escape from everything, though, I feel like Time Portal is the way to go. Which is how Gary Sparrow manages it in Goodnight Sweetheart. So,
wow,
Gary,
almost like some kind of segue.
Yeah. Gary is a TV repairman in 1993. I must point out he is already aware that his job is on the way out in 1993.
Who repairs TVs?
In the opening episode, he meets someone, introduces himself, and says that they seldom go wrong these days. So and when he's out on one of his calls, he sort of stumbles on a passage to the 1940s, London's East End. And Gary's life in the 90s is not going great. He's got a job that he's not really that fussed about. His wife is quite distracted and busy. She's really ambitious. She's doing an open university course, and as the series goes on, she ends up getting promotions, launches her own business. Gary is not that. He is not ambitious, and he just starts to feel sort of, I think, a bit left behind. but he doesn't really have that many friends. And so when he's back in the 40s, he initially kind of thinks it's a bit of a dream. And Joe just says, well, I can do whatever I want here, really. And even when he kind of realises, no, this is real, it is, he treats it like it is a fantasy. So he pretends to be a secret agent, because why wouldn't you? It's also a very good way of a man in his mid-30s getting away with the fact of, well, why aren't you in uniform? And why aren't you away with the war effort? And yeah, falls in love with the first woman he meets behind the bar of the first pub he goes into. And by this, we looked at a couple of episodes from the second series, two-parter called Wish Me Luck and As You Wave Me Goodbye. And this is the point where Gary has gone back to the 40s. He keeps finding himself sort of drawn back there. Back in the 90s, he's lost his job and there's not really much keeping him there. And throughout it all, he's very much decided, said like he loves both of these women in his life, Yvonne in the present day and Phoebe in the 40s. But he decided that really he should make a go of it and commit to one of them. And Yvonne's got this nice high-flying life in the 90s. He feels like she doesn't really sort of need him and he's a bit useless there. So why wouldn't he go and sort of make it full-time job in the 40s? The only person who knows that he can time travel is his best friend Ron, who also happens to be a printer, which is quite convenient when you need some ration books and ID cards and some money knocking up. Yeah.
I'm pathetic. A pale shadow of a man. I am a weak-kneed eunuch. Maybe your staff know the intimate details of my personal life. You've told them, haven't you?
Only that you've got two birds on the go. Look, you've got some serious respect from the guys out there.
So with episode C, Gary, he decides to leave clothes on a bridge and go off and have a go at living full-time in the 40s, because what could go wrong there? Pete, you know that I really love this whole sitcom, all 6 series of it. I've watched it multiple times and adore it. But I know that a lot of people have issues with it, at least of all the fact that it is partly just a small part about sort of a man having an affair, and that's frowned upon these days. Well, it should always been frowned upon, to be honest, but I think nowadays folk can very much look back and go, what? So go on, Pete, put me out of my misery. How did you find it?
What the hell? No, I find it's fascinating. It's intriguing. How did well, you asked the question, who walked into the BBC commissioning thing and said, here's the idea for you. It's the early 90s. We've got One Foot in the Grave. We've got Hyacinth Bouquet. What we really need now is a time-travelling bigamist. And and the BBC said yes. But the answer is Lawrence Marks and Lewis Grant, the writers, who've got a CV that they could have proposed a sitcom about someone who collect caterpillars or something, and it would have got commissioned. And clearly, it was a huge success. Ran for such a long time. It is so it feels, to me, it feels more dated than either of the other two. But is that because I spend more time watching stuff from the 70s and 80s and don't actually watch that much? His 90s clothes look more dated than his 1940s clothes.
Is that because the 70s, 80s stuff has come back around now? Yeah, the 90s is only coming around if you're like a Zoomer.
Yeah, the big too big suit with not shoulder pads, but sort of shoulders that want to be shoulder padded. He wears sometimes. So I remember this starting. I remember watching the first episode when it went out. When I would have been, about 20? Yeah, 93?
93?
Yeah, so I would have been about 20. So I was, I think it was the year before I went to university. They liked my A-levels so much they wanted me to stay and do them again. From the beginning, I was continually confused by the fact that the woman in the present day is called Yvonne, which is a 1940s name, and the woman in the 1940s is called Phoebe, which I would think of as a more modern name. That absolutely confused me from the off. But I thought it was a really fun prospect, because it gives a lot of a lot of farcical situations can ensue, but it's really tied down. And the difference between this one and the other two is that they were all written with a beginning and a middle and an end. This is just supposed to roll and roll. And also it's got different writers coming in, whereas the other two were both written by their creator. These episodes we watched weren't written by Marks and Granite, but Marks and Granite has such a huge... Their name is bigger in the opening credits than the title of the thing. It's Marks and Granite, Goodnight Sweetheart.
It's them and, Nicholas Lyndhurst. They pick him specifically for a reason when they're casting this, because they know he's a likeable actor that, is clearly, very familiar to audiences by, and this point, essentially for in Only Fools and Horses. And I do think that's why it works, that Gary's not a fantastic person. He's not a hero at all. He's quite ordinary and flawed, but he does remain quite likeable. And I picked these episodes because I think they're quite key in the story, because it's up to this point, Gary's sort of treated the 1940s like it's somewhere to escape to. It's a bit of a theme park, and he can kind of, whatever he goes and does there doesn't have real consequences for him. It's why it's this little pocket universe, and it is partly how he morally justifies it to himself, that he's got two different worlds and they're two different women, and they will never meet, and spoiler, they will. But it works like that, and what he does in the 40s doesn't impact him like in the 90s, and then that changes with this.
The only thing the shops aren't short of at the moment is shortages.
Never mind, I saw one in the garden of a bombed-out house. I'll go and get that.
That's looting.
It's only an old broken bedside cabinet. What can they do to me?
Shoot ya.
He ends up there in the 40s. He actually has to put up with the reality of rationing, of like sitting through crappy cinema that he doesn't want to watch, of there not actually being a great deal to do, of having to queue for food for everything, of like generally being that like more like grim and miserable day to day. It turns out, like, if you've been in a war living in a war on the home front for a while, it's quite grim. And then he, by the sort of end of it, he decides actually he can't hack it, but he goes back and does fire watching, which is basically, you live in a local area, and I know about this because my nan did it, you go onto the roofs, and when the sort of planes come over during the Blitz and drop incendiary bombs, these basically will drop and will explode unless you quickly can go and put some sand on them. And your job is to put out fires before they become like big explosions. And he comes back from that and is clearly like traumatized from it. And I think it's maybe sort of not there like too obvious, but I think but we kind of start to realise that Gary he starts to treat the 40s like it is a bit more real. And you say it's a series that doesn't have sort of planned sort of route, but they always planned it to pretty much only last for the war. So it's 6 series, and the first one is set in 1940, and the following are set pretty much in each year of the war, and it sort of concludes when the war concludes.
Because I would just contrast it with Allo Allo and Dad's Army, the obvious other ones to contrast it with from previous generations, both doing wartime, both treating it as a situation for a bit of a farce and a background for a farce with characters that you get very fond of, but also with it's a pretty much a reset. I mean, they have plot lines going through. Allo Allo does particularly, but still, it's not the story of René's journey. Yeah. And how he became a different person through the course of the war, for example.
They're the kind of classic sitcom setup of the characters are not changed by the end of it, because you need for the situation to work, it's got to be the same next week. Whereas, although it's technically a sitcom, it's got a half-hour format. I would probably class Goodnight Sweetheart as a comedy drama. It is serialized and stuff, and like I said it. Unlike, say, Dad's Army, it follows stuff in real time. There's a lot of references to dates and what's going on and events and stuff. So, yeah, at the start, we're in the middle of the Blitz, and then we get to a point later on. And there's interesting stuff like Phoebe commenting about the fact that life's even more dull in the war now that they haven't got the Blitz going on. Like, at least when they were coming over, you know, we could have some fun, we could watch the dog fights and cheer our guys on when they got one of their lot down. And now it's just more shortages and bad news.
Yeah.
And we're with Gary because we kind of know that there will be an end in sight one day, but they don't. And Gary's problem when he tries to live there, as he points out, is he wakes up one morning, looks in the mirror, and goes like, "Oh look, it's the moron who faked his own death in the 90s to come and live in the world of air raids and shortages." And you're the only one who knows they've got 4 more years of this. But the series goes weirder later on in that. Well, and I love that actually it changes from probably about sort of series 4, certainly by series 5, and they start playing around with the time travel aspect of it far more. So Gary is the only one who can go through the sort of the time portal with early on is those sort of rules, but then stuff lots going wrong with it. Sort of some people can come through to the 90s, some people manage to get through to the 40s. I really enjoy when it kind of starts going that bit sort of stranger.
Yeah, you've got to do that. If it's lasting for years, you've got to start mixing up the thing that seems like it's locked in, isn't it? He is such an interesting character because he moans that Phoebe at one point. Phoebe just says to him, "Why don't you stop moaning for a bit?" Because he's suddenly so miserable to discover that he's trapped there, and this is actually their lives that he's been popping in on for an entertaining diversion, and to get to swan around with his fake money and luxuries that he's been able to bring back with him. At some points he reminds me a bit of Angus Deaton's character in One Foot in the Grave, even the peevish. Yeah, he's just really peevish sometimes, but then he comes back to be so. And it's an interesting to contrast him and Peter Davison as specifically younger men who have gone to create new lives for themselves or attempted by new lives for themselves. And Davison ends up loving it at the university and is heartbroken when he thinks it might all come to an end, but he tries to be, well, not necessarily heartbroken, but he says, he'd probably go and get a job in London or something, but he doesn't want to, he really feels that he belongs there, in the place that he's gone to, whereas Gary in this is clearly cut between the two, and that's something that's just going to stay as the case because he tries to make the cut and can't.
4 hours I spent wandering around looking for razor blades. Do you think I could find any? The thing that gets me is they've got some, but they're keeping them under the counter for the regulars.
Tell me about it.
And the queues. There's queues everywhere for everything.
Is there really?
I asked one bloke what he was queuing for, and he didn't know. He just saw the queue and got on the end of it. I mean, what's happening to people?
Yeah, I think probably when I originally viewed it as well, I always thought, maybe just because I enjoyed the difference of them being in the 40s, I always thought he would probably preferred the 40s. But actually, when I come back and sort of rewatch it, it's clear actually just how much he does sort of love Yvonne. And in these episodes, when he comes back, he's not just pleased to be back in the 90s with football on the telly and stuff. It is like her, like as well, that he's missed, and he's so pleased to be able to see her again and spend time with her.
Yeah. There's some. In terms of it saying that this feels more dated than the other two, this is the only one that had a joke in it. Well, I suppose there's the mother-in-law jokes in in Reggie Perrin, of course, and this one has a joke. What's his friend's name? Played by the guy who'll always be the guy from Bread. Ron, thank you, Ron. Yeah. I had a bit of a thing for Ron in this first series, and I can see why. He's quite cute. He has a line about, talk about how mad some people are, and or gullible people are, and anyone who believes in David Icke and who fancies Fergie. And it's like, wow, you're making a joke about how ugly a famous woman is. That's just what we did in the 90s. It was, you wouldn't have got that in the previous decades, and you definitely wouldn't get it now. That's a very 90s specific thing.
It's odd. They don't like they do pepper like. I guess what must have been really felt like present day references. It's still clearly not the idea of thinking about this might be dated in 3 years again when it gets repeated. They gradually kind of fit in try and fit in more sort of 40s ones. There's ongoing joke that Gary hates George Formby.
Oh, right. Yeah, is that right? Because that seemed a bit extreme when he rushed out of the cinema just because George Formby came on. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of peppered throughout where he comes on the radio and he'll just instantly go, "Oh no," to turn it off. And this concludes fantastic. There is a later episode where he meets George Formby. Where Reg, the police Edmund in the 40s, and Phoebe are kind of reminiscing about 30s days, and Gary obviously can't really join in on this because he has no memories of that, and trying to get remember when Hitler invaded Czechoslovakia, and it feels just like a history nerds kind of thing. Like, yeah, I'm kind of here for that stuff.
And I suppose, and maybe when they were pitching it, there was a bit of, they mentioned Back to the Future although it's not quite the same. There's still that thing that's how you can get the comedy. You know, the comedy is going to come from this modern guy who's there and he's trying to bluff his way, and he bluffs and sometimes he gets it wrong. And yeah, when Phoebe talks about King Edward being a bit of a dish, and like that's the kind of thing that like I've listened to podcasts where they go to great lengths to explain his popularity, and she did it more concisely than they do. And how just completely shocking it was when the king suddenly abdicated, but out of the blue, as far as the public were concerned.
The other purpose is where you kind of really understand the veneration they have for royalty, and it's quite contrasted with sort of Gary's, where like they're on the cover of Hello and stuff. Whereas in the 40s they clearly feel that bit more untouchable and still, I don't know, mythical is probably not quite the right word, but it's certainly, I think, a kind of pre-60s view of the establishment, and there's a bit more respect for royalties, politicians in general, that like Gary quite struggles to grasp initially.
Life. It's a funny thing, isn't it, son?
Yes. Oh, thank God, an air raid.
Oh, crikey. Thought they might give us a rest tonight.
No, don't panic. It's the docks that get it tonight. Apart from one bomb that falls on Gibbons' furniture warehouse. Well, I mean, that is, intelligence leads us to believe that a bomb might hit Gibbons' furniture warehouse, you know, and that's nowhere near here, is it?
Gibbons. Sure, I used to know where that is.
It's just around the corner.
Jimmy Knapp. There's a topical joke for you.
I don't know who Jimmy Knapp is.
No, what and why? And I mean, even in the 90s, he was like, so he was the leader of the Railwaymen's Union. So they were, and they were quite striky. They were one of the more striky ones in the TUC. And then he became president of the TUC, the General Trade Union Congress, in the mid-90s. So he would be someone who would have been in the news quite a bit and around talking about strikes and things. So that's why he had a very strong Scottish accent and was very gruff. And so, yeah, you've got the communication skills of Jimmy Knapp is a joke that's probably harder to follow now than the jokes about the abdication crisis at a distance, because at least you're more likely to have picked that up.
You know what? I would probably have got references to 70s union leaders much better.
Oh, you would, yeah, yeah. It's 90s ones. It's like tail end of it, to be honest. It was much more exciting in the 70s.
Well, I say I get slightly surprised that by the 90s you've still got those as household names. I just kind of presume that Thatcher had really kind of put the nails in the coffin, and with that, and by the mid 90s, well past that, looking ahead for Roll On, New Labour, and New World, yeah.
Yeah. But I think you'd get him on Question Time sometimes, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I'm hoping that I do increasingly come across more people who will appreciate Goodnight Sweetheart for what it is, because I think it's a good comedy drama, and it certainly I don't think there's going to be many things that would do this. The whole, aside from the whole bigamy affair side of things, but it is partly that attention to detail of doing it in real time. Of, you know, Gary visits 1st of May 1940 when it is 1st of May 1993 or whatever, and they down to stuff like the daylight savings time. It changed during the war, which means that he manages to do New Year at midnight in the 1940s and in the 1990s one year.
Oh, that's really clever.
Yeah. And There are other sort of episodes where later on where they explore the impact of it all on Gary. There's a particular good one that I is doing called Have You Ever Seen a Dream Walking? All the episode titles are based off Fortis songs and Fortis films and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, there's one where essentially Gary's having very vivid dreams and starts to be confronted by both the women in his life and by Ron, because though it's not really seen here, it's clear as it sort of goes on that there's just not an equal friendship. Gary uses Ron for it's printing, but emotionally I think he leans on Ron far more and isn't there. He's not as good a friend enough to Ron, because he's trying to run two lives basically, and it's quite hard work. and he's confronted by all these things that clearly have been in the back of his mind. So yeah, I think sometimes he can be, on the surface might not be the greatest character, but it's all sort of there and increasingly juggling difficult to try and keep his both of his lives happy as they become increasingly full. So by the end of the second series, Gary decides to open his own sort of Fortis collectibles shop, because it's got quite a lot of stock at hand. It's easily obtainable, and they're building over where the passage is, this Duckett's Passage alleyway down to the Fortis, and this will give him a route, and so he can just nip out the back of the shop, grab some Fortis stuff, come back quite well. Never entirely work out how that is a viable business model, as God knows how much he's actually open. But it
how much
works
demand
quite,
there really was, yeah.
Yeah, it works quite well for the show that it gives him a job because he works for himself, where he can just keep disappearing off to the Fortis to, smooch in air raid shelters and that kind of thing. Meet Noel Coward, and yeah, they make Noel Coward a regular character in the later series, which I just think is like the goal of but I really like him as well. Tries to teach Phoebe how to speak proper, and you get a bit of like difference there from her perceptions of class and what that means in for the future, and sort of Gary's ones where it's all like egalitarian and stuff. Yeah.
And are they, am I remembering rightly that they recast both of the female leads? Did that happen at the same time?
Yes. So after the third series, both women want to do the thing, and so. Yep, come back, and we completely, just don't mention anything about the fact that these are entirely different women. I think it's probably sort of down to cast changes and stuff, or which ones people prefer. They're both kind of at a point of their characters developing stuff where I think it's around to the point where they at one point both of Gary's women are pregnant. Because wouldn't that be hilarious? And yeah, she continues to launch her own business, and it does become very 90s on trend. Like later on, like by series 6, she's going off for meetings with Tony Blair and stuff. She's become this powerful businesswoman, and they're preparing for the sort of turn of the millennium, and Gary's preparing for the end of the war.
Is it bad, son? Go on, I can take it.
I'm sorry. It looks like you've lost your leg.
Oh, God, not another one.
You lost that leg 5 years ago when you got drunk and fell down a coal hole. You'll be all right, Albert. You've just had a bang on the head.
So there was the one-off revival episode after these sort of 6 in the 90s. 2016, the BBC did this sitcom season where they sort of revived a load of sort of old sitcoms. So they did new versions of Are You Being Served and Porridge alongside Goodnight Sweetheart. Recreated lost episodes of Hancock's Half Hour to the other two part, and also did pilots for some sort of new sitcoms, and a couple of them went off and got done. And by the timings of that meant that it was now the 60s for Gary, and the Beatles are about to come along and stuff, which is a bit of an issue for Gary because he's been spending the last 20 years claiming he wrote a load of their songs, along with many other pop artists and stuff. he sort of ends up coming back to the present, and it was really kind of well set up for revival, and they missed their opportunity. And I will always be bitter and sad about it. They revived bloody Porridge instead, and it was crap.
Oh.
But I'm nonetheless, I'm very happy with what we get. I think, yeah, it remains enjoyable for me across its run, and it's quite a satisfying conclusion. It is a conclusion. Like I say, they always planned to do, if they could, the 6 years of the war, and so it sort of sits very nicely with sort of things changing in Gary's life and things changing with, like I say, as the war changes and things go on there.
Yeah. I went into it with the question in my head: could you swap? You couldn't probably. Leonard Ross is irreplaceable. You could make a show like that with someone else, but it wouldn't be anything like. It would just be different.
No.
Could you swap Peter Davison and Nicholas Lyndhurst in their respective roles? Iron out the age difference. Forget that. Yeah, because they're not entirely dissimilar. They're of a similar stature, but they do give. I think maybe Peter Davison, or at least the performance he gives in Peculiar Practice, is just a bit too nice to convey. To do
you
the
think
bigamy,
he's too nice to be
to pull off the bigamy?
Gary Sparrow.
Yeah, because Gary is. I mean, when at the beginning of the episode, he thinks she's pregnant, and they've been trying for a baby unsuccessfully, and then when he thinks she's celebrating being pregnant, and when he realizes she isn't, he says, "Oh well, don't worry about that. Any idiot can make a baby," and it's like he's so insensitive. Whereas I don't think Peter Davison was.
I see what you mean in that even when, say, he's sort of Tristan in All Creatures, and he's getting up to slightly nefarious things. You always kind of believe that it's, with good intent. He's being mischievous rather than actually intending to do something outright horrible and nasty.
Yeah, or even disregarding someone else's feelings, like in this Gary, because the landlady annoys him by accusing him of having sex with Phoebe. He tells her she is. He goes, yeah, we are. We've been shagging all day, or towards that effect. Which
sexual
say that about a woman,
sexual aerobics. Acrobatics. Couldn't swing a cat here, let alone do acrobatics.
You put that news out about a woman in the 1940s, and she's really angry at him because she says she's been getting shunned in the queue for the fish shop.
It's all very well than thinking it, Rob, but you straight out confirming it is completely different.
Yeah, that's a really big deal. And so he does that because he's peevish and the landlady is annoying him, and he doesn't think of the effect it's going to have on her. But then that's the thing that all of these series deal with in different ways, and that's maybe what Goodnight Sweetheart has more in common with Reginald Perrin, is that their main guy is doing his thing, and other people are kind of getting friendly fire or collateral damage as he's doing it. The harm that Leonard Rossiter's character does to his family, ultimately it sort of gets laughed off, but it's not really thought about. And
he can be quite, I think, he's sarky and in that way.
Yeah, a little bit.
A bit like, I guess, short-tempered, or at least he's with short foresight. He doesn't plan these enough of it ahead. He's just trying to cope with things day to day, which is partly why his attempts to go to the 40s doesn't work out, in that it hasn't really figured out what he's going to do when he gets there. But at some point clearly he's going to run out of money, and I think he just thought he'd move in with Phoebe and they'd run the pub, as if that be it. Not kind of really thinking about the fact that actually, they're seeing one another, but she's still married, husband's in a prisoner of war camp, and no, she's not just going to let him move in on the fly straight away when they've not even discussed it. And although she's well up for it, it isn't until it's pointed out that tongues will wag even if you say he's a lodger.
Yeah. We didn't talk that much about Reg. Does Reg get less annoying or more annoying? I kind of feel like
he's grown on me over time, but he is always this kind of sort of dim-witted. They do kind of try to expand his character of the kind of joke of the first episodes is Gary asks a policeman in the 90s for directions, and it turned out that policeman is the grandson of Reg. And occasionally the 90s one does pop up again, and they're completely identical, apart from the 90s one has a wig. It's the same actor. And all we kind of know early on about sort of like Reg in the fort is he's got a wife who's sort of is having it off with all the sailors, basically. And he is sort of quite dim and he's not really got much other sort of background. But as sort of time goes on, we find out that he had an affair with a woman some years ago and has a little boy he doesn't know about. They get brought into the series, and so there is a bit more to him, and you can kind of see that he's got a good heart, even if he's completely thick. It's there for sort of comic effect, and I'm pleased when it's not overused too much. But I think partly he gets brought in a bit more because in the first series, Phoebe's dad's there and Eric, and then I think the sort of actor sort of decides, either if he decides to leave or he's got other work and he can't come back, but they get rid of him, and so then he's sort of, Reg kind of can step into. No, it's not the same role at all because Eric was a sort of grumpy bloke who didn't like his daughter going off seeing Gary, quite reasonably, frankly. And Reg is nowhere near that sort of assertive or intelligent. But you don't need as many people in a scene, basically.
So here's a question. Of the three shows we've discussed, they present 4 different worlds, really. Two in Goodnight Sweetheart. If you were running away today, and you've got no choice. They're coming to get you. Oh. You've got to pick one. You've got 4 slots.
Oh God!
Which one are you jumping to? 1970s suburbia? Are you jumping to 1980s academia? Are you jumping to 1990s television repairing and fraud? Or are you jumping to 1940s? I'm being cruel. I'm splitting that into 2 choices. You can't be Gary. You can't be jumping back and forth between the 90s and the 40s. Because then you would just, obviously you'd choose that. That would be the most fun. But if you had to pick one of Gary's 2 or one of the other 2, where are you going?
I don't think I'd cope in the 80s academia world. No, because otherwise that really should just be the obvious option. The 90s world Gary's in, I think I've realised that it hints at these sort of economic issues at the time. Yvonne and Gary are struggling to sort of move off their estate of starter homes.
Yeah, because
this is
the John Major recession era, isn't it?
Yeah,
Cool Britannia is not there yet, maybe by the end, but not yet. Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to be insane to go live in the 40s, really. I think, like Gary, I think it's a nice place to visit. But as much as I will frequently acknowledge the 70s is not an ideal place to permanently reside, Reggie's life is quite nice. He's 46, the kids have left home, and he's got a nice house in suburbia with sort of can walk to the station. It seems ideal. And he's clearly got a job for life there with sunshine desserts. I'm sure he's got a good pension.
Yeah, I'm sure he's paid off his mortgage. There was a line in that episode about somebody having crashed his car or something, and crashed it into the front of a house that was worth £40,000 or something like that. Yes. Everyone sort of, it must be a mansion.
Yes, I'm very much. If I'm Reggie in this, I have definitely paid off my mortgage. Because I know it's 1976. I know what the inflation was at that point in the 70s. So yeah, I've definitely paid off the mortgage. And I want to go and live with Elizabeth and the cats. And I really like Brendan Foster's shirts.
Is that Army? Oh no, yeah.
He's nice striped. He's got a really nice pink and white one at one point, and it seems to be permanent summer there, so that helps too. So yes, I'm very much sort of, but I shouldn't really be a surprise. But with the realities of the 70s, I feel that suburban life Reggie's got will be pretty foolproof from it. How about you, Pete?
I'm tempted in many ways. The 90s has its draw. The music scene is about to kick off. The club nights that I was far too shy to go to when I was a teenager, and I've tried to make up for it subsequently, but that would be a draw. But likewise, I love the 1940s aesthetic, but yeah, people are constantly trying to kill you, and there's not much food. So I would, while the 70s thing is cool, I think I would go for 1980s academia. I think, as someone, as the whole tone of Very Peculiar Practice is about the horrendous introduction of market forces in universities, and as someone who works in the marketing department of a university, I'd be ahead of that curve. Me and Bob Buzzard would get together, and I'd be able to steer him in the direction that Rosemary would probably terrify him away from. But I would also definitely want to hang out with Rosemary, because she's just one of the coolest characters in the entirety of fiction, I think.
So it's time for our test card scale. Basically, if we're going to work through these shows, 0 being you'd rather watch the test card, 5 you'd spend hard-earned money on a luxurious box set of it. Where are you placing Reggie Perrin?
Out of 5, it's I'm struggling to. I haven't fallen. It's not love at first sight. I don't want to immediately go and watch it all, but I think it clearly is really good. I've taken it for granted, having seen so many clips. It's clearly a 4. It's clearly 4 out of 5 for me. I probably wouldn't buy the deluxe collector's edition box set, but I'd pick up a nice package with all the episodes. Yeah. And you?
I'm gonna drop it maybe 4.5. I'm half. I sometimes think maybe I can get too close to Reggie's life. Yeah. So who'd also worked in sales and marketing. I've realised rewatching it recently, I identify with far too much of this even more now. A Very Peculiar Practice for me. I'm probably sitting more on a 3 at the moment. I'm intrigued enough to watch more, but I don't think I've watched enough of it to be as sort of completely sold on everyone yet. But you talking about it continues to entice me even more.
I'm explaining to you that you should have liked it more than you did. I spent a lot of time doing that to people.
But how about you?
Well, unsurprisingly, it is absolutely fine. For me, it's up there.
Easy
TV
5, yeah.
Shows I've watched in their entirety more times than any other show. That and the reboot of Battlestar Galactica are probably the 2 shows I've watched the most of any shows ever.
Well, no surprise that Goodnight Sweetheart is the easy 5 for me. It's my Desert Island discs pick of DVD box sets. And likewise, I definitely spend a lot of time, I feel, trying to convince other people how wonderful it is.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, I mean, it's better than the test card for sure. But no, yeah.
Come on.
No,
don't even tease.
That was the final episode of Cathode Ray. No, it's
Pete fell off a bridge with his clothes on the edge.
It is clearly in the upper echelons of what it is. Yeah, it's definitely. I've got to give it a 4. I mean, yeah, I would definitely watch more episodes of it. I think it's something that I took for granted of it as just being sort of background TV, although slightly quirky when it was really on. And it's the kind of thing where, I mean, I wouldn't splash out on a collector's edition box set, but if it was coming up on Talking Pictures TV, I'd series link that and I'd make my way through it. I think, yeah, it's that kind of zone, yeah.
But I think all of these are pretty well available. As was recording this, Reginald Perrin's on iPlayer. It seems to spend an awful lot of time on there happily.
The full thing, I think it's only series 1.
It might be, yes.
But maybe more will come.
It seems to go on repeats on Gold, which is UK TV Gold, where I originally managed to catch it. And yeah, don't think any of these are particularly rare DVDs or anything at the moment. Crop up on certainly Reginald Perrin, Goodnight Sweetheart, crop up on repeats a fair bit.
Yeah, Peculiar Practice, it's not up on any of the official streamers at the moment, but you can find it if you just Google it and filter by video, you will find it. But the DVD set is great. You get both series plus the movie, and there's a couple of commentary tracks on it as well. And it's a nice use of DVD. It's well worth it. What about Goodnight Sweetheart? Because is that in a big box?
It has a big box set of everything, although I'm still with my individual DVDs that I saved up my pocket money for as a teenager in HMV and gradually sort of, built up and for, yeah.
And it's on of course it's on, you can get it on, I watched it on Amazon via ITVX trial subscription.
We're closing down for the night at Cathode Rays, so thank you for listening to the Cathode Rays podcast. This has been a HBTV production from the Midlands. You've been listening to me, Hannah.
And me, Pete. And as some nuns are angrily hoovering around us, we definitely need to make our way out of the cafe. We hope you'll join us again next time for another chat about CRT-era telly. For now, we wish you goodbye, and please do remember to turn off your set. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Two, three, four, make 'em sweat outside the door. 5, 6, 7, 8, always pays to make 'em wait. 9, 10, 11, 12, come! Ah! Reggie, sit down.
Thank you, CJ.